ਕੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਲਾਅ ਆਫ ਕਰਮਾ ਬਾਰੇ ਸੁਣਦੇ ਹਾਂ that we are going to reap what we are sowing, ਤਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਰਿਅਲਾਈਜ਼ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਨੈਗੇਟਿਵ ਬੀਜ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਥਿੰਕਿੰਗ ਤਾਂ ਬੜੀ ਨੈਗੇਟਿਵ ਹੈ, ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਬੜੇ ਮਾੜੇ ਕਰਮ ਕੀਤੇ ਨੇ, ਅਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਫਿਰ ਡਰ ਲੱਗਣਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ। ਅਤੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਯੂ ਡੋਂਟ ਨੀਡ ਟੂ ਬੀ ਅਫਰੇਡ, ਕਿ ਐਸਾ ਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਲਾਅ ਆਫ ਕਰਮਾ ਬਾਰੇ ਸੁਣੋ ਅਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਸ ਡਰ ਜਾਓ ਕਿ ਹਾਏ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੀ ਹੋਏਗਾ, ਹਾਏ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੀ ਹੋਏਗਾ, ਐਂਡ ਯੂ ਗੈਟ ਇਨ ਟੂ ਦ ਸਟੇਟ ਆਫ ਵਰੀ ਐਂਡ ਫੇਅਰ। ਐਵੇਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ। ਈਵਨ ਦੋ ਯੂ ਗੈਟ what you sow, but it is important to remember that ultimately universe its welfare पर wait कर रही है। welfare exists, everything is governed by hukam, which stands for welfare, okay, which stands for love. So you don't need to be afraid. Ultimately everything that is happening is for your own welfare. It is for your well-being, because everything is governed by hukum. अगर फिर भी ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ बड़ा डर लगता है कि ਕੀ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਕੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਏਗਾ, then you can always pray कि गुरु अगे अरदास करो कि गुरु साहिब कि ਹੁਣ तक जो मैं ਕੀਤਾ है ਉਹਦੀ मैं भुल मंगदा ते अगों I'll not do these things. I'll try to not to engage in negative things and surrender before the Guru. Rather, the purpose of human life is to surrender. Guru Nanak Dev Ji says in Japji Sahib, Kiv sachiara hui hai, kiv kooda tutta paal, hukum rajai chalna, nanak likhya naal. So the way to be truthful, the way to attain your true self, the way to attain the truth or God is by surrendering. Kiv sachiara hoyi hai, kiv kooda tutte paar, hukum rajai chalna, nanak likhya naal. Now hukum ki hega? In the next few lines, Guru Nanak Dev Ji explains that हुक्म अंदर सबको बाहर हुक्म ना खोए. Everything that is happening is according to hukam, and you need to agree with this hukam. You need to surrender to this hukam. So everything that is happening, if you accept it, if you say okay this is fine, everything that is happening, if you accept that everything that is happening is for your own welfare, then you have surrendered. And once you surrender, everything in your life starts to get better. Because the purpose of human life is to surrender. And once you start to surrender, everything in your life starts to fall into place. Because the universe is telling you that now you are on the right path. And that is what the law of karma is. It tells you whether you are on the right path or not. Isn't it? It is also important to remember, so that you don't fear, that law of karma is under the power of hukam. It is not that कि कर्म ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ अपने आप आके सजा दे रहे ने. कर्म नाल जो भी negative circumstances create हो रहे ने, that is under the command of hukam. Guru Nanak Dev Ji says, आपे बीज आपे ही खाओ, नानक में आओ जाओ. So अपना बीज आप ते खाना ही है, but it is all under the power of hukam. So if you directly approach hukam, so which hukam खड़ा है ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕਰਮਾਂ ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ circumstances ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, hukam is governing what you reap. If you can pray to hukam, if you start aligning with hukam, ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਜੋ ਪੁਰਾਣੇ ਕਰਮ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਹਟਨੇ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਜਾਣਗੇ. You will not be required to reap the negative consequences once you start aligning with hukam. Because ultimately you are not what you think you are. You are a soul which stands for eternal joy and bliss. So eternal joy and bliss are your natural heritage. You can claim that at any point of time. You need not be governed by the law of karma. You are governed by the law of karma only till you think you are this body or this mind, or till the time you are under the illusion that you are not a soul. Once you become aware that you are a soul, you can claim your natural heritage and you need not be governed by the dictates of the law of karma. You need not reap negative consequences for your negative thoughts in the past. You need not reap even positive circumstances. You can just revel in the joy of your being. And also remember that there cannot be any disaster that can't become a blessing. Richard Bach says that, and no blessing that can't become a disaster. So even if you are in the midst of a disaster, don't blame yourself that because of your negative thinking, you have come to this. Don't blame yourself. Any disaster can be converted into a blessing. It's about the choices that you make in any moment that determine whether the disaster can become a blessing or not. So instead of worrying about the disaster, remember, worrying is a negative choice that you are making. Don't choose to worry. Gurbani says, Nanak chinta mat karo, chinta tisi hi hai. Gurbani also says that, Chinta taaki kijiye jo anhoni hoye. Right? So nothing is anhoni. Nothing is as such a disaster. Only if you perceive it to be a disaster, it becomes a disaster for you. Otherwise, it is just what it is. Anything that is happening, it is just what it is. Jo ho raha hai, so ho raha hai. You are making some things to be a disaster and you are saying ki, okay, this thing is very good for me and this thing is very bad. But you don't need to label things. You can just choose to remain focused on your own joy. You can choose to be joyful in every moment, and that is the best choice that you can make. And by making such kind of choices, you can convert any disaster into a blessing. And that is what law of karma means, and that is what Gurbani is telling us, that we need not worry, that we need not be afraid. We are not slaves. We have the freedom to choose our future by making our choices in the present moment. And one of the biggest choices is choosing a response, how you would like to respond to a present circumstance, which may not be very positive in nature. So before ending this, I would like to say that the law of karma does not mean that you need to be afraid of your actions. Rather, it just means the opposite, that you shouldn't be afraid. You should continue to make choices out of your joy, because the choices that you make out of your joy are positive choices, and they are going to reap positive circumstances for you. So leave all fears aside. Guru Nanak Dev Ji says, "Jo to prem khilan ka chao, sir dhar tali gali meri aao." Right? So, agar tusi sir hi tali te rakh deta, what other fear could you have? Think about it. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji is saying to us that we should abandon all our fears when we start to follow the path of spirituality. And the path of spirituality is actually getting in alignment with the law of karma. The spirituality is not something against us. Spirituality is for our own welfare, isn't it? So you don't need to worry, even if you have done things in the past. You need not be afraid of their consequences, because you can always get aligned with Hukam, with Guru Sahib. You can pray to Guru Sahib. Prayer is a powerful force. It aligns you with your true being. It aligns you with Guru Sahib, who is the power pervading the entire universe, and without whose Hukam, nothing can happen. So don't choose fear, choose trust.